Manu National Park, located in the Amazon region of Peru, is one of the most important and unique wildlife reserves in the world, covering an expansive area of nearly 2 million hectares. The park protects one of the most diverse ecosystems, ranging from lush rainforests to wetlands and highland ecosystems. It is home to thousands of animal and plant species, many of which remain undiscovered. This rich biodiversity makes Manu an attractive destination not only for scientists studying biology but also for visitors who enjoy the raw beauty of nature. However, one of the most remarkable aspects of Manu is the presence of a jaguar, a large predator belonging to the Felidae family, which is not native to this region. The jaguar, or Panthera onca, is the largest feline species in the Americas. Known for its strength, speed, and exceptional hunting abilities, jaguars typically inhabit tropical forests, particularly in areas like Mexico, Central America, and parts of South America, such as Brazil and Colombia. However, the presence of a jaguar in Manu National Park is a special phenomenon because this species is not native to Peru. The appearance of a jaguar in this area may be the result of migration or an expansion of the species' range, but its existence undeniably highlights the unique biodiversity that the park preserves. An interesting aspect of this jaguar is how it has adapted to its new environment. Although jaguars are capable of living in various types of forests, from tropical rainforests to wetlands, the shift from its familiar environment in other parts of South America to the dense Amazon rainforest in Manu was a significant challenge. This jaguar had to develop its own strategies for hunting and survival to coexist with other animals in the area, ranging from small mammals to larger animals like wild pigs, deer, and even caimans. Its agility in moving and hunting has allowed it to establish a territory within the park, from dense forests to riverbanks, where it can find a variety of prey. This has created a unique habitat within the park, where the jaguar has become an important part of the natural food chain. Its presence not only adds to the biodiversity of the ecosystem but also presents a new challenge for scientists studying the relationships between wildlife in such a complex environment. The jaguar is not just a simple predator but also plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem, preventing the overpopulation of smaller animal species and ensuring that the food chain remains stable. Within the park, there is a young, energetic, and curious jaguar. It is an adventurous individual, eager to explore and discover new areas within its territory. This young jaguar is often seen in the early morning hours when the mist still blankets the forest. During this time, the air is fresh and quiet, with everything seemingly bathed in a mystical fog, creating a perfect atmosphere for it to hunt or simply roam through its domain. However, despite its playful nature, the young jaguar also knows the value of peaceful moments, lying quietly in dense bushes, enjoying the tranquility of the forest before continuing its journey to find food or explore more remote areas. With its distinctive golden-brown fur and black spots, the young jaguar blends effortlessly into its surroundings. The black markings on its back not only serve as a means of identification but also provide excellent camouflage, allowing it to remain hidden in the dense forests of Manu. Its sharp eyes never miss a small movement, whether it's a prey animal moving or a fresh trail in the forest. The young jaguar knows how to use the terrain to approach its prey undetected. Its quiet steps and high focus make it a highly effective hunter. although sometimes it simply enjoys moments of relaxation in the stillness of the Amazon jungle. Its hunting trips are adventures full of challenges and discoveries. Each day, the young jaguar can move through different areas of the park, from high mountain peaks where it can view the vast forest below, to quiet streams and mysterious wetland areas. Each area in the park presents different opportunities and challenges for the young jaguar, and it constantly finds ways to survive and thrive in this wild environment. The early morning hours, when the sun begins to rise and the mist lifts, are also the moments when the young jaguar feels the closest connection to nature, when everything is still fresh and untouched by the outside world's noise. This jaguar is not just a part of the wild ecosystem of Manu National Park but also symbolizes the remarkable adaptability and survival skills of wildlife in harsh environments. Its presence is a testament to a thriving ecosystem, where every species can find a place to exist, grow, and contribute to the natural balance of the area. Manu National Park, with its extraordinary biodiversity, is not only home to native species but also welcomes other animals, creating a vivid and diverse portrait of wildlife. One peaceful morning, the young jaguar prepared for a hunt. The air was still cool, the soft rustle of leaves in the trees, and the forest was quiet, except for the occasional bird call. The jaguar, sleek and poised, knew this was the perfect time to stalk its prey. It had spotted an easy target earlier, a lone antelope grazing near a dilapidated fence, slowly munching on the fresh grass that grew in the clearing. The antelope, unaware of the danger lurking nearby, was calm and unsuspecting. It was the perfect moment for the young jaguar to make its move. With every muscle tensed and its golden coat blending into the undergrowth, the jaguar crept forward, its movements deliberate and measured. It could hear its own heartbeat, a slow, steady rhythm, as it navigated the dense brush. Its senses alert, its keen eyes never left the antelope, tracking its every movement. The jaguar knew that it had to be patient, wait for the right opportunity, and strike when the time was just right. But just as it was about to launch its attack, something changed. The antelope, with a sudden flick of its ears, seemed to sense a presence, a shift in the air. It froze for a moment, its head snapping up, eyes wide, ears pricked in alarm. The jaguar's heart skipped a beat, its cover was blown. In a flash, the antelope sprang into action, its legs carrying it with a burst of speed as it darted away into the thick vegetation, disappearing into the maze of shrubs and trees. The chase was on. The young jaguar, already poised for action, surged forward with incredible speed. Its powerful legs pushed against the earth, each stride bringing it closer to the fleeing antelope. The jaguar was fast, its long, muscular limbs worked in perfect harmony, each motion calculated and fluid. It ran like the wind, the underbrush and tall grasses barely slowing it down. The antelope, desperate to escape, weaved and darted, trying to lose its predator in the dense foliage. Its hooves kicked up dirt and leaves as it tore through the forest, its instincts pushing it to the limit. But the jaguar was relentless, closing the gap with every passing second. Through the thick underbrush, the jaguar pursued, its breath coming in sharp bursts, the adrenaline surging through its veins. The antelope was nimble, twisting and turning with impressive agility, attempting to navigate the dense thickets and thorny vines that sprawled across the ground. But no matter how hard it tried, the jaguar was always just a few steps behind. its determination unwavering. The ground beneath them seemed to blur as both predator and prey raced through the wilderness. The only sound the pounding of their feet and the rustling of the leaves. The chase seemed to stretch on forever. The jaguar closing in on the antelope. Its muscles burning. Its focus sharpening. It knew that it had to keep the pressure on, never allowing the prey a chance to recover. But then, just as the jaguar was within striking distance, something unexpected happened. The terrain beneath it changed. The ground suddenly gave way to a patch of tall grass. And buried beneath the brush, hidden from view, was an old, rusted barbed wire fence. The jaguar, its eyes locked onto the antelope, failed to notice the hazard in its path until it was too late. In a split second, its powerful body crashed into the sharp, twisted metal. The jaguar's body jolted violently as it collided with the fence, the sharp barbs digging into its sides. The pain was instant, a stinging, searing sensation that sent a wave of shock through its entire body. It recoiled, momentarily stunned, its momentum halted by the unforgiving metal. The jaguar let out a low growl, its teeth gritting as it struggled to free itself from the tangled mess of wire. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The young predator's heart raced, its mind trying to process what had just happened. It had been so focused on the hunt, so caught up in the thrill of the chase, that it hadn't seen the danger until it was too late. The antelope, sensing the change in the chase, took advantage of the brief moment of confusion. With its own survival instincts kicking in, it darted off into the distance, disappearing into the dense foliage without a trace. The jaguar, still tangled in the barbed wire, could only watch as its prey escaped. The pain in its side was sharp, and the realization that the hunt had failed hit it hard. Its body ached, and the jaguar knew it had to get free from the entangled fence before it could move again. With a powerful lunge, the jaguar managed to free itself from the fence, its side bleeding where the barbs had torn through its fur and skin. The jaguar took a moment to catch its breath, the adrenaline still coursing through its body. But its hunt was over. It had been outsmarted by its prey this time. For a moment, it stood still, licking the wound on its side, the sting of failure biting deeper than the physical pain. The hunt had been cut short. But it wasn't over yet. The jaguar knew that the jungle was full of opportunities, and it would not stop until it found another chance. With a final glance at the path the antelope had taken, the young jaguar turned and disappeared back into the dense forest, its tail flicking behind it as it silently melted back into the shadows. It was a creature of relentless pursuit. And while this hunt had failed, there would be others. In the wild, there was always another day, another opportunity, another chase, and the jaguar would be ready for it. The young jaguar found itself ensnared in the sharp, unforgiving barbed wire, its body tangled in the rusted metal that lay hidden beneath the brush. The moment it collided with the fence, pain shot through its body like an electric jolt, and now it struggled desperately to free itself. Every time it attempted to pull away, the sharp barbs dug deeper into its flesh, tearing through its thick coat and into its tender skin. The jaguar's breath became ragged, its once graceful movements turning into frantic thrashes. It growled in pain, its sharp claws scraping against the ground in an attempt to gain leverage. But the more it struggled, the worse the situation became. The metal seemed to hold it tighter, as if it had become a part of the jaguar's body itself. Blood pooled around its legs, and its side throbbed with the raw sting of the wound. The jaguar let out a cry, a scream of pain that echoed through the quiet morning, reverberating off the trees and into the stillness of the forest. The jaguar's instincts screamed at it to break free, to flee, but the pain was overwhelming. Each movement sent shockwaves of agony through its body. The jaguar's mind raced, but its body was failing it. Its powerful muscles trembled with exhaustion, and its eyes, once sharp and focused, were now clouded with the haze of pain and fear. The barbed wire was relentless, each barbed edge a cruel reminder of how vulnerable the great predator was. The jaguar's body was trapped in a metal vice, unable to escape, its every attempt at freedom only worsening its situation. As the jaguar's strength began to wane, a deep, guttural growl escaped its throat. It was no longer the confident, agile hunter that had once ruled the jungle, but a creature in agony, struggling to survive. Its breath came in sharp gasps, the pain in its side unbearable. But still, it fought, never willing to surrender. It knew that the longer it remained stuck, the weaker it would become. The blood that dripped from its wounds formed a crimson pool on the ground, staining the forest floor. It could feel its energy draining with each passing moment, and the thought of being helpless in the face of such a brutal trap gnawed at its resolve. In the distance, the jaguar's family, the rest of the pride, heard the sounds of its screams. The low, painful growls of the young jaguar echoed through the trees, reaching the ears of those who had once roamed these forests together. The sound was unmistakable, a desperate call for help. The other jaguars, drawn to the noise, moved quickly through the forest, their senses on high alert as they approached the source of the cries. Their powerful bodies weaved through the dense underbrush, their ears pricked for any further sounds of distress. They knew something was wrong. They could feel it in the air. The pride had always been close-knit, always looking out for one another. But as they neared the clearing, their movements faltered. The sight before them was one of horror. There, trapped in the rusty embrace of the barbed wire, was the young jaguar. Its body was bruised and bloodied, its muscles trembling in pain. The other jaguars halted at the edge of the clearing, staring in disbelief. They saw the young one struggling, the blood pooling around it, and the helplessness in its eyes. But as much as they wanted to rush forward, to pull it free from the fence and ease its suffering, they were paralyzed with fear. The barbed wire was too dangerous, too sharp. They knew the risk. If they got too close, they too could become ensnared, trapped in the same cruel metal. The jaguars stood at a distance, watching with helpless, worried eyes as their kin continued to fight against the unforgiving trap. The air was thick with tension as the young jaguar continued to struggle. Its body trembled with each movement, the blood loss making it weaker with every passing second. It was clear that time was running out. The young jaguar's breath became shallower, its growls turning into whimpers, the pain overwhelming it. It glanced back at the other jaguars, its eyes filled with a mix of fear and frustration. The pride stood in the distance, watching, unable to intervene. They could hear the desperate cries of their young member, but they were powerless. Their instincts told them to help, to save the one in need. But the danger was too great. They couldn't risk their own lives in an attempt to free the young jaguar. The young one's strength was fading. With each breath, it became harder to maintain its focus. It had fought so hard to survive in the wild. But this time, the forest had turned against it. The jaguar could feel the weight of its own mortality. the crushing realization that this might be the end. Its body trembled uncontrollably, the sharp, searing pain in its side making it almost impossible to concentrate. The barbed wire dug deeper into its flesh as it shifted again, the metal scraping against its skin, causing fresh waves of agony. The jaguar growled once more, but this time, the sound was weaker, more strained, as though its wool was beginning to break. It was losing the fight. The other jaguars could do nothing but watch from a distance, their eyes filled with sorrow. Their powerful bodies, capable of taking down the largest prey, were useless in this moment of helplessness. They had no choice but to stand and wait, knowing that the young jaguar's fate was in the hands of the forest and the merciless wire that held it captive. The air was thick with sadness as the young jaguar's struggles grew slower and weaker. The pride, united in their concern, could do nothing but remain in their positions, silently watching as their kin fought against the inevitable, until at last, the forest fell silent once more, save for the faint sound of the wind rustling through the trees. A group of tourists, exploring the wild beauty of Manu National Park, happened upon an unusual and distressing sight. The sun was rising slowly over the forest, casting golden light across the dense vegetation, when they noticed the young jaguar caught in the rusted barbed wire. Its body was twisted painfully in the trap, blood dripping from the deep cuts that marred its sleek, muscular form. The jaguar's desperate cries echoed through the air, sending a shock of concern through the group. They had heard the growls, the pained yelps, and had come closer to investigate, unsure of what to do. But it was Rodrigo, the tour guide and conservation expert, who immediately understood the severity of the situation. With years of experience working in the park and a deep respect for the wildlife, Rodrigo had grown up among the creatures of the Amazon. He knew that this was not just an ordinary encounter, it was a life and death moment. And the jaguar needed help. Rodrigo's heart raced as he observed the situation. The jaguar was struggling, weak and hurt, its movements growing slower with every passing second. The other jaguars, its family, its pride, watched from a distance, unable to intervene, their eyes filled with helplessness and concern. The jaguar's fate hung in the balance. But Rodrigo was not about to let this magnificent creature suffer any longer. Despite the inherent danger of approaching such a powerful and wounded predator, he knew what had to be done. He motioned to the tourists to stay back, urging them to remain as quiet as possible. His focus was entirely on the jaguar. He had worked with these animals before, knew their behavior, their moods, and their instincts. But this was different. This was a young one in pain, and Rodrigo had to act with precision and calm to prevent further harm. Rodrigo had a deep understanding of jaguars, particularly the way they behaved when injured. They were fierce, proud creatures, and in pain, they could lash out in desperation. But Rodrigo was confident. He knew how to approach the jaguar slowly and carefully, speaking to it in soothing tones, trying to communicate that he was not a threat. He could see the fear in the young jaguar's eyes as it turned its head toward him. But the pain and exhaustion were evident too. The jaguar's breath was shallow, its body trembling as it remained trapped in the cruel embrace of the barbed wire. Rodrigo crouched low, taking slow, deliberate steps toward the jaguar. He knew that if he moved too quickly, the animal might react violently. But if he was too slow, it might not trust him enough to allow him to help. It was a delicate balance. But Rodrigo had faced similar situations before. He spoke to the young Jaguar in a low, steady voice, his words soft and calming, hoping to keep the animal from lashing out. "I'm here to help," he whispered, though he knew the Jaguar couldn't understand the words, only the tone. The Jaguar's eyes flickered, its muscles twitching as it listened. But it didn't fight. Rodrigo continued to approach, inch by inch, making sure to remain calm, focused. The Jaguar let out a soft, pained groan as Rodrigo reached it. He could see that the animal was exhausted. Its body pressed tightly against the barbed wire, unable to move without causing itself more pain. Rodrigo took a deep breath, pulling the rescue kit from his bag. The tool he needed, a pair of sturdy rescue pliers, was essential for the delicate work ahead. He had no time to waste. But he also had to be meticulous. Each cut had to be made carefully to avoid making the Jaguar's wounds worse. The Jaguar's fur was matted with blood, and its body was visibly weaker with every passing moment. Rodrigo knew that if he didn't act fast, the young Jaguar might not survive. With a steady hand, Rodrigo began to use the pliers, carefully cutting away the barbed wire that was wrapped around the Jaguar's limbs. The Jaguar let out a sharp, guttural cry of pain, its body jerking against the wire. Rodrigo flinched, but he didn't stop. He knew that the Jaguar's instinct would be to fight, to free itself, but it needed to stay still for him to work. He spoke softly again, his voice barely above a whisper, but filled with reassurance. "You're doing well," he murmured, gently patting the Jaguar's back. His touch was light, but it was enough to calm the animal, if only for a moment. The Jaguar's body trembled beneath his fingers, but it remained still, as if it knew that Rodrigo was trying to help. The process was slow. With every barbed edge Rodrigo cut free, the Jaguar would let out a quiet whimper of pain, its body reacting to the intrusion. Each time the Jaguar cried out, Rodrigo's heart ached, but he stayed focused. He couldn't afford to rush. One wrong move, and the Jaguar's injury could become fatal. He had worked with wild animals before, but there was something different about this one. This was a young Jaguar, full of potential, full of life, but right now, it was vulnerable, trapped by something it couldn't escape. As the minutes passed, the tension in the air was palpable. The other Jaguars, still watching from a distance, had grown quieter, their eyes fixed on the scene before them. They could sense that their family member was being helped, but they stayed at the edge of the clearing, unsure of the danger that still lingered in the air. Rodrigo worked carefully, each movement measured, his breathing steady as he cut through the final pieces of wire. The Jaguar's body twitched with pain, but it didn't struggle as much anymore. Rodrigo could sense that the animal was growing weaker, but there was hope. He was getting closer to freeing it. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Rodrigo removed the last piece of barbed wire. The Jaguar's legs were free, but it was still bleeding, its body bruised and battered from the struggle. Rodrigo moved quickly now, applying pressure to the Jaguar's wounds, trying to stem the blood flow as best he could. The Jaguar, exhausted and in pain, let out one last quiet growl, a sound that resonated deeply in Rodrigo's heart. But there was a sense of relief in that growl, as if the animal knew it had been freed from the trap. Rodrigo took a step back, his heart still racing. He had saved the Jaguar, at least for now, but the work was far from over. The Jaguar needed medical attention, and Rodrigo knew that it wouldn't survive without help. He quickly signaled to the tourists, asking them to call for assistance. They all stood in stunned silence, witnessing the bravery and skill of Rodrigo as he worked to save the young jaguar. His actions had been nothing short of heroic. His knowledge of the wildlife and his calm, steady demeanor making the difference between life and death for the young predator. As Rodrigo watched the jaguar slowly stand, shaky but determined, he knew that this was just one of many challenges in the wild. But for today, he had made a difference. The jaguar was free, and with time, it would heal, and Rodrigo, standing in the quiet forest, knew that he had played a part in ensuring that the wild, unpredictable beauty of Manu National Park would continue to thrive. After what seemed like an eternity, Rodrigo finally managed to free the young jaguar from the cruel grip of the barbed wire. His hands were steady but his heart raced, knowing the animal had barely survived the ordeal. With a final, careful pull, the last piece of the wire came loose, and the jaguar's body, still bloodied and battered, was freed from its torment. The jaguar, weakened and in pain, slowly stood up, its legs shook, its body trembling with exhaustion. But it was no longer trapped. The jaguar's eyes, once filled with panic and confusion, now softened. And it took a few hesitant steps, its senses beginning to reconnect with its surroundings. It was free. It was still alive. For a moment, there was silence. Rodrigo stood back, watching, giving the young jaguar the space it needed to gather its strength. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sounds of the jungle seemed to pause in that moment, as if acknowledging the significance of what had just transpired. Then, slowly but surely, the rest of the jaguar pride, those who had been watching from the distance, began to approach. The older, more dominant jaguars moved cautiously at first, their eyes never leaving the young one. They sniffed the air, carefully assessing the situation, their scent trails mixed in the still morning air as they approached the injured member of their group. The jaguars moved with a quiet dignity, their heavy paws soundless against the forest floor. They circled the young one, a protective gesture, instinctively surrounding it. The pride's actions were clear. They were checking on their kin, ensuring that the young jaguar was not in immediate danger. The older ones sniffed at the young jaguar's fur, their movements slow and deliberate, offering reassurance and comfort. The younger jaguar, still wobbly from the trauma, looked around at the pride, its body still weak but no longer trapped. Its gaze settled on Rodrigo, who stood at a respectful distance, silently watching the reunion. The jaguar's eyes softened, and in that brief moment, it seemed to offer a silent acknowledgement, a deep, unspoken thanks. Rodrigo, in return, gave a quiet nod, a subtle gesture that expressed his understanding of the animal's gratitude. He knew the jaguar was still in recovery, so he decided to give it the space it needed. With a deep breath, Rodrigo stepped back, retreating slowly to the vehicle where the tourists were waiting. They had been watching the entire rescue unfold, and as Rodrigo moved away, they came forward, their faces filled with awe and admiration. The group was deeply moved by the courage and compassion Rodrigo had shown. They had witnessed not only the rescue of a majestic creature but the way in which humans and wildlife could coexist in harmony when respect and knowledge guided the way. They could see the connection between Rodrigo and the wild animals, something that words alone could not explain. As Rodrigo joined the tourists, he took a moment to reflect on the experience. It had been a close call for the young jaguar, And though the rescue had been successful, the journey ahead was still long. The jaguar needed time to recover fully. The young predator's body would heal, but it would take time and rest before it could regain its full strength. Rodrigo knew that the forest was both a place of great beauty and danger. And in these moments, the line between life and death could be razor thin. But his heart swelled with pride, knowing that he had made a difference, that he had helped to ensure the survival of one of the Amazon's most powerful creatures. In the days that followed, something extraordinary happened. The pride of jaguars, which had initially been cautious and distant, began to follow Rodrigo. It started with the young jaguar, limping slightly as it ventured closer to the man who had saved its life. At first, it simply observed him from a distance. But gradually, it grew bolder. The young jaguar would run alongside him, keeping pace as Rodrigo made his way through the jungle. It was almost as if the jaguar was keeping a watchful eye on Rodrigo, a quiet companion in the vast wilderness. Slowly, the rest of the pride followed suit. The jaguars, once distant and wary of humans, now seemed to trust Rodrigo. They ran alongside him, their movements graceful and powerful, as if thanking him for what he had done. They no longer viewed him as a threat, but as part of their world, someone who understood their pain, their struggle, and their need for protection. Rodrigo's relationship with the jaguars became a symbol of the delicate balance between humans and nature. In a world where human activity often disrupts the natural habitats of wildlife, Rodrigo's actions were a reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of conservation. His knowledge and connection to the animals, honed through years of dedication to protecting the wildlife of Manu National Park, had allowed him to bridge the gap between human and animal. His quiet bravery had not only saved a life but had forged a bond that transcended species. The jaguars now followed him as a sign of respect, their trust a silent acknowledgement of his role as a guardian of the forest. Word of Rodrigo's heroic actions quickly spread, becoming a story that resonated far beyond the jungle. His name became synonymous with conservation, a testament to the power of understanding and compassion in protecting the natural world. News outlets picked up the story, and conservationists hailed him as a hero, a symbol of what could be accomplished when humans worked in harmony with nature. But Rodrigo remained humble. For him, the greatest reward was not the recognition, but the knowledge that he had helped ensure the survival of a young jaguar, a species that relied on the delicate balance of its environment to thrive. As the months passed, the young jaguar, once weak and vulnerable, grew stronger. It resumed its place in the pride, its strength returning as it hunted and explored the vast expanse of Manu National Park. The connection between the jaguar and Rodrigo remained, an unspoken bond of respect and gratitude. Rodrigo continued his work, guiding tourists, protecting the wildlife, and sharing his deep knowledge of the park's ecosystems. But his heart always held a special place for the jaguars, for the creatures he had saved, and for the quiet, powerful connection that had been forged in the heart of the Amazon. Rodrigo had become not only a protector of the animals but a living example of the possibility of coexistence. His actions spoke louder than any words ever could, and his legacy, shaped by his love for the natural world, lived on in the hearts of those who understood that the preservation of wildlife was not just a duty, but a responsibility shared by all.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.